Good morning, everybody. It's Sunday. As you can tell, I'm out in my squeaky van. I'm in my truck heading to town. And this video is going to be about raising livestock on your homestead or your ranch and things to take in consideration before getting animals on your property. So I experienced something yesterday that I can't think that I've ever experienced before, and I want to tell you the story, and this is going to dovetail right into raising your own livestock. Now, I've raised my own livestock for many years. My last ranch, we had it all, the goats, chickens, pigs, cows, horses, sheep, ducks. I'm probably missing some animals, but we did it all. We did it all. So I'm very experienced with raising animals, butchering animals, processing them, that type of thing. And I never, it's always kind of been a thing with me, and I try to raise my family this way as well, is do not become attached to your food. You know what I mean? If you go out there to your pens and your wife or your kids start calling, the pigs by name, it's probably not a good idea. And I'll tell you the experience I had last night to support this. Now, I am not opposed to having compassion for your livestock. These are animals typically that you've been around since they were born, and you raised them up. Sometimes, if they're premature, you got to bottle feed them. So it's kind of a normal human thing to become attached emotionally with your livestock, like pets. But it's such a dangerous thing to do, I think. I think it's a dangerous thing, not physically, but emotionally, especially for the women and children on your homestead. For me, when I walk out and I see my pigs rooting around or my cows out in the pasture, doing their thing, I don't look at them as anything other than meat in the freezer. That's how I look at them. That's how I cope with the inevitability that they will be butchered, they will be shot in the head, they will be cut up, they will be gutted, they will be processed, packaged, and frozen. I think of them only as food. I don't name them. I don't go out there and spend time with them. Don't pet them, really. I mean, they're not pets. They're not dogs. They're not cats. They're not horses. They are food. So let me tell you about the experience I had last night. So I took the family. We went to Ramona, which is probably 45-minute drive from downtown San Diego, barring traffic. It's up in the mountains. It's a country, outskirts community. It's grown a lot recently, but it's a mountain town is what it is. It's a great place. They have a lot of cool events. We went there for 4th of July. They had a free fireworks show. It was awesome. But last night we went up there for Ramona Country Fair. It was a small fair. They had some rides, the rides that make you puke. That's why I don't go on fair rides, because they make me puke. But we went there. William was with us, my little boy, my wife, my mother-in-law, and my daughter and her boyfriend. We all went there. We had a great time. There was bands there. There was food vendors. There was other vendors. A lot of people. And 4-H was there. That's where the story's going. If you don't know what 4-H club is, I'll give you the brief overview. It's basically a club for kids, like an after-school thing, where they raise an animal and then they take it to auction to sell. People that buy from the auctions are typically business owners that are helping out the kids, because I believe some of the money from the auction goes to paying for the feed and whatnot for the animals, and also some of the money goes to, I believe, I could be wrong on this because I don't know much about it, but I think a portion of their money that they make go towards a college fund or something like that. Now, I could be wrong on that, but that's what I think what happens. Anyways, so the auction's going on. The animals are being sold like normal. The community is great when it comes to supporting 4-H and FFA, and all these different great organizations. And last night, before we left, it's probably 9 o'clock or so, we were walking around the final part of the auction, checking out the different animals. Beautiful animals, by the way. These kids, they just do a fantastic job. And just to give you an idea of the scene, basically it's a pole barn, just an open air barn with a lot of cages, probably about 100 different cages, probably by 8 feet by 8 feet for the pigs and goats and sheep. Of course, the cows had more space, but anyways. When we did that final walk, there's signs up on the pens of the kid who raised it, the information of the animal itself, the weight, the breed, and all that stuff. And at the end of the day, the kids will put up a sign thanking whoever bought their animal. Thank you to Joe's Tires for buying my pig, type of thing. Just a thank you, kind of a cool thing the kids do. We saw, my wife and I, when we were walking this, we saw so many kids sitting in the pens with their animals crying, just bawling their eyes out. And these are, 10 to 15 year olds crying because they know what's going to happen next. They spent, a year or two raising these animals themselves, hands on every single day. And now they know inevitably what's going to happen to their animal. They're going to be either put in a pen for breeding, because they are pretty good stock. They're either going to be used for breeding, or they're going to be cut up into steaks. And they know this. The kids know this. This is probably something that is taught to them at the beginning of the 4-H club when they join. So the kids, there were so many crying kids, man. It was sad. It was heartbreaking. But that goes to my point. If your kids are in 4-H or FFA, or if you live on a ranch or a homestead and you guys are raising animals for food, I believe, and this is my opinion only, I believe it's imperative that the children and your wife, they don't become emotionally attached. Now, it's easier said than done. We have a goat, a male goat, a boar, or a buck rather, and we're going to use him for breeding. I like the type of goat he is. He's the smaller dwarf goats, so they're a lot easier to handle. They don't take up so much room, they don't eat so much, but they produce like crazy. So he's our buck. We're taking him out to Arizona, our homestead, and we're going to get him a female, a doe, and they're going to doe ray me all the time. And I'm going to eat the babies. That's how it's going to work. Now, my wife, even though she's Mexican, doesn't like goat meat. She doesn't like the taste. I like it. I think it's delicious. And it's super healthy. So I know that the goat that we have now isn't going to end up on the table. He's going to end up having a harem of females he gets to mess around with. So lucky him, right? But your family getting close, so close to your food that they get emotional when it's time to process them. It's a hard thing, and it's not necessary. Now, it's a natural thing, of course, like I mentioned. It's natural to become attached to the animals that you're raising, that you're taking care of daily. I mean, you protect them like children. You don't want harm to come of them, because that's your investment. That's your food investment. So how do you get to the point where the emotional connection is severed or doesn't begin in the first place, just to spare the hearts of your family? I think it's important, if you're going to start raising livestock, to make it well known that this is not a pet, this is nothing more than food. Maybe take your kids to the freezer, hold up a package of hamburger or pork chops, and say, this is the end product of that animal outside. They have to know this. Seeing all those broken-hearted kids last night, it reiterated in me the way that I do it is correct. I don't want my kids crying. I want my kids looking at the pig saying, man, I love bacon. Right? Man, I love pork chops. So the family has to realize that these are not pets. They are animals. And these kids last night, again, I get it. They're children. They're emotional. capacities aren't like an adult's, and they have feelings, and their hearts are broken because they know it's going to happen. I believe the kids that I saw most likely were first year 4-H kids, because if you do this 4 or 5 years, you kind of get used to it, and then you finally understand, okay, mom and dad were right, these are not pets, this is how it is, this is life, with life comes death, and the circle continues on, right? So do I have compassion for these kids? Absolutely. I you know, watching these little kids, these little teenagers, you know, just sobbing, sitting down, holding their pig. You know, it's sad. It was sad. Even my wife started getting emotional. But a good way to combat that brokenheartedness is to don't start with that. Don't start with that. They need to be trained from the very beginning that these are not pets. These are our food. And that's just the way it is. So sometimes it's a hard lesson to teach and to learn, but you know, it is what it is. This is the ranch life. This is the homestead life. You have to get past that emotional connection, and it's so much easier to get past the emotional connection when you don't begin the emotional connection. You have to have it in your mind. Keep that stuff separate. You know, when I dispatch an animal, I have no emotion about it at all. You know, I look at it like I will give these animals the best life they can have, with clean food, clean water, clean pens, not being cramped, being able to run and play, and all that stuff that livestock does. Up until that day, you know, they had the best life possible, better than most. So that's one way you can not really justify it, but one way you can kind of get through the emotional heartache part of it is knowing this animal had a better life than most all livestock out there. And that's a good feeling, knowing that you did that. So yeah, their life was cut shorter than it normally would have been if you didn't process it. But the life they had up until that point was a great life. So what do you guys think about this, about not being attached to your food, your livestock? You know, I think, again, it's a bad idea to name your animals. They're not your dog. They're not your cat. They're, you know, freezer fodder. That's my term too, by the way. Patent pending. Freezer fodder. Oh, I'm just pulling up to the Border Patrol checkpoint here, guys. Looks like they're checking every car. Wow. So I'm gonna hold you down here because these guys get nervous when there's cameras around. So, morning.
I'm good.
Two. All right, so just past the Border Patrol checkpoint. So there you go, guys. What do you think about this? Do you think it's a bad thing that kids play with the pigs and the goats and the chickens? I don't think it's bad that they play with them. You know, I would love to see William jump on the back of a goat or something like that and ride it around. You know, mutton busting, that's fun. That's some fun stuff to watch. Kids jump on a sheep and let them go like a rodeo. But they have to understand, you know, that there's a limit. You should never have an emotional connection with your livestock. Just my opinion, guys. What do you think? Am I missing the mark somewhere? Put it down in the comments box. If you're new here, just a quick introduction. This channel is about myself and my family out at our Arizona off-grid homestead. I'm currently not in Arizona right now, but this subject definitely pertains to homesteading, and it's kind of like a documentary of our journey doing this off-grid lifestyle. We have less than a year until we're out of Southern California and up to our homestead. We're making a lot of good progress, and we should be able to keep our time frame. But anyways, I'll let it go at that, guys. Let me know what you think about becoming emotionally attached to your livestock. Do you think it's a good idea? Do you think it's a bad idea? Me personally, once again, to reiterate, I think it's a bad idea. You should not become emotionally connected. Otherwise, when the time comes, it's going to be harder for the people to get through their so-called loss. I don't claim it to be a loss. I think it's a gain. To fill your freezer is a gain, but it just makes it easier. Plus, I mean, sitting down at the dinner table with a pork chop from the pig that your kid raised up from a piglet, it's going to make it a lot harder for those kids to chow down. You know, this is food. This is sustenance. This is something that we need in order to live. Farm animals give their lives so we can continue to live. That's just the way it is. That's this world. That's the pecking order. You know, if it was different, we would be on the table and the pigs would have the fork in their hand. So there you go, guys. I hope all is well. And we will see you on the next video.